Tuesday Talks. It's about 7:30 p.m. and we're going to be getting started here in about 2 or 3 minutes as we allow some other participants to jump on this webinar with us. We're now just crossing over 400 participants, and we've got more coming in. So just be patient. We're going to get started here. In the meantime, if you would like to get some paper, pen, or a camera so you can take shots of the screen, that would be great. Okay, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. Give me a second as I get a chance to record this right now. All right, so we are officially recording, and so first of all, I want to welcome everybody here to Tuesday Talks here with me, and for those of you that are joining us for the very first time, thank you for joining us. We're going to get started, and we've got a great program. We got a lot of things that we want to talk to you about. So go ahead and get some paper and a pen or something to write with, or if you've got notes on your computer, you can do that. We certainly encourage you to take pictures as well with your phones because we are going to go over a bunch of stuff. And I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to try to keep this to an hour, but we may go till 8:45. And hey, if we go over a little bit, I mean, we're really scheduled to go till 9, but I've been, you know, for about 90 minutes every Tuesdays. However, you know, we've been doing this for about an hour each week just so that we give you some more time to be with your family. And then, of course, my wife said, John, she says, these people have been with their family all day, so they probably want to hear you, so that's great. So I appreciate that. Of course, that's my wife saying that. I'm not sure about the rest of you guys. But anyway, I hope you guys had a wonderful week since the last time I spoke with you. We've got the last time we talked about a bunch of stuff, and we appreciate all the feedback you've given us, that many of you have gone to the SBA, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today and kind of crystallize, you know, the EIDL and the PPP program here in just a minute. So let's get right to it. First, we've got a very special guest. You can probably see her on the screen now. This is a young lady that I met when I think she was 19 years of age, and she was a fashion designer who moved from Brooklyn, New York to California. And when she came out to California, she really didn't know anybody, didn't have a single, you know, family member out here, a friend. Although there was one young lady, her name was Dina, and she, these two connected somehow, and Fradel actually came to, first of all, Fradel came to one of our meetings that I had held in Encino, California. And it was really a bizarre thing. I mean, we could have a whole hour talk just about that. And she was just a person I'd never met. That came. We used to go to. We used to hold these meetings called. They're called. All right. So let me backtrack a little bit, right? So we used to do these things called meetings at night, and then we would have like a leadership meeting. We used to call them the meeting after the meeting. And then after that, we kind of had like the super duper crazy people who wanted to just learn more and had so much to do. We called it the meeting after the meeting after the meeting. And then, of course, it was like midnight. And so we were hungry. We would go out to eat. And we did this thing called the eating after the meeting after the meeting after the meeting. And Fradel actually showed up to that. And I said, oh, you know, I started talking to her as if she had been an associate, but I didn't really recognize her. But what's crazy is this young lady, wow, what an incredible businesswoman she has become. She is now a mother, and she's got a couple kids, I think more coming soon. I don't know. I mean, she comes from a very large family. What is it, like 11 or 12 in her family of siblings, and I'm blessed with one, but Fradel, I mean, you got me beat by 10 times, you know. So, but she's now gone out to Brooklyn, and she went back after she learned everything from us here in California. She moved back to New York, opened up an office, and she is the first office that opened up in Wall Street. So it's pretty cool to know that she's represented us very well, having an office in Wall Street, but then she's now opened up offices all over the Midwest and down south in Florida. She's built tremendous leaders around the country, and you've probably seen her on numerous different television shows. She's been on radio shows. She's been speaking. She's been doing webinars. She's been doing women and wealth and money and finance and, I mean, just all over the place. And so I know right now for us it's 7:30. For her in New York right now it's 10:30. And we're just great to, I was talking to her a few days ago, and she's very, you know, of course, we all know that this pandemic, the epicenter of that here in the United States is in New York. And of course, you know, I'm a little bit skeptic about the news and how they all embellish things or over-exaggerate things. And of course, I always get the truth from Fradel, and I called her up and said, hey, Fradel, what's the real scoop? What's going on? And she says, you know, she gave me the whole lowdown. But the best part about that is she's still an amazing businesswoman. Her business is still just skyrocketing right now. She's doing extremely well. And she's doing all this while she's having her young ones at home, and of course her husband. So there's a lot that she's juggling, like many of you guys are right now. And you're probably asking yourself, how is everyone else doing this? Like, you know, it's like to have your children at your house for 3 or 4 or 5 hours a night, you know, after school is one thing, but now they're up, you know, these little gremlins are up at like the crack of dawn, and they're with you all night, and because you're not sleeping, they don't want to sleep, and at the same time, you still got to run your business. So without any further ado, I want to welcome to this call, or to our webinar, Fradel Barber. So Fradel, welcome to our webinar. How you doing?
Thank you, John. I'm doing amazing, fantastic, never better, despite all that's going on, and excited to be on tonight. I mean, it's 10:30, but man, I feel like I can have a whole nother 12 hours, even though I just completed about 16 hours of work, but I'm fired up, let me tell you.
That's great. Well, I'll tell you what, you're such a wonderful example to so many people, and you are juggling so many things, and I'm just grateful that you've joined us. And I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners, people from all over the country. As you're looking, I also made you a co-host, and you can see now we're climbing up at over 600 people here now in terms of, you know, participants that are listening in. What are you think? Well, first of all, let's talk about your mindset right now. I mean, are you allowing the coronavirus to affect the way you think in your day-to-day business, et cetera, et cetera? I mean, how are you handling that, especially with, you know, being right there? You're in the epicenter of the whole, you know, virus. So, you know, I mean, that's pretty scary. You know, we're scared here, and I'm in California right now, and I'm scared, and we've got like 1/10 of the number of deaths as you guys have, or the number of people who've even contracted the virus. How are you handling all that mentally?
Yeah, so, you know, the first thing is it's about being cautious and safe and not ignorant, but at the same time, not allowing everyone's opinions, everyone's feelings, especially the media, to infiltrate into the mindset. And so one of the things I can tell you is I don't watch the news. I get one email a day that has a snippet of all the major things going on, just so I am aware of what's happening in the world. But outside of that, I don't watch TV, I don't watch the news. So literally the information I'm getting is the one that's pertinent to my life, right? And anything that's really going to be pertinent, you'll get it. You don't need to sit there and watch TV all day and get worried, because if I sat there and did that and watched all the New York TV channels, I mean, you probably even see it in California, you're pretty much watching not just the epicenter of the pandemic, but the epicenter of the negativity of the pandemic. And the reality is that is taking place in the hospitals. I have people that I know that are nurses, that are hospital directors, and I give them so much credit because they actually have to go to work day in and day out and see that. But guess what? Unless you're a nurse, unless you're a doctor, unless you work in the hospital, there's no reason for you also to live that, right? You got to live your own life while that's going on. And of course, giving credit and pushing those people up and supporting them in any way possible. But at the end of the day, there's no need to drag yourself into that environment and into that lifestyle when that's not your job. And especially if you're in the business of helping people and other things, as an entrepreneur, you solve a problem for people somehow. If you're in the financial industry like I am, you're solving people's money problems. And guess what? We're considered essential workers. We're actually able to go to our office if we choose, because we're considered essential workers, because people during this time still have to manage their money. In fact, New York State Department of Financial Services yesterday was the deadline for us as insurance representatives to be able to notify our clients of certain information that they must know about during this course of time of what's happening. So we're considered essential, but in a different way than someone, let's say, working in a hospital or a nurse is, because they're actually dealing with the sickness, they're dealing with the people's lives. We're there to see how can we make people's lives better. And whatever you do, if you're an entrepreneur in a different industry, you have that responsibility too, not to devote yourself to the negativity, but to really see how can we help people through this time. So the way, to answer your question, John, the way I protect my mindset is I focus on what can I be doing to grow during this time? And I've really taken that to the next level. I mean, you know, just to give you an example, prior to all this happening, my business was probably 30% online, meaning virtual, and 70% face-to-face. And that goes with meeting with clients, talking with people, how I train my team. I have about 500 licensed professionals that I train. All of that, about 70% of that was face-to-face. Well, adjusting to this time, and we just we're now 100% virtual. Things like, a Zoom meeting like this, right? Where before, to get 600 or so people in a room, you'd have to rent out a hotel, you'd have to plan, 2 to 3 months ahead of time. Here, within a week or two or a couple weeks, all get on this call and gain knowledge from each other. So I think it's about, one is protecting the mindset from the negativity, but then it's also adjusting with the times and going with that flow. So that's really what I've been doing, and it's been working great.
Awesome. Now let me ask you, you've got an enormous team around the country of independent sales associates. And, I'm sure that they're, having a crisis of their own, some manage it differently. So what are you doing with your team? Like, what are you telling your team right now? And what are you telling your teams to do, in terms of a sales, to meet their clients and to educate them and to keep them aware and abreast of all the stuff that's happening in the market. Like, and right after this, I'm going to talk to you guys all a little bit about, because one of the things that we've been getting a lot of calls from people is my opinion as to whether or not we're in a recession or if we're in a depression, and I've got some slides I'm going to show everybody the difference between those two. But what are you telling your teammates right now? Are you having calls and Zooms? And if you are, which I know you are, what are you telling them on the phone or webinars to what they are doing to keep their sales going, to get the cash flow going, to keep the production going, or whatever else that they're doing?
Yeah, we definitely are. I think that in this time where where we have to practice that social distancing, where we're not necessarily having those face-to-face meetings and conversations, I think the importance of communication is actually even greater. And so what we've been doing is we literally have a meeting every single day. I personally host what I call the Champions Roll Call at 8 a.m. Eastern Time every single day. And it's really a meeting of champions. Everyone has to be there with their video turned on, because that's the closest we can get to face-to-face. But it also makes people get up and running at 8 o'clock in the morning, where they have to be on a video, right? They have to be seen, they have to be present, and they have to be ready to perform and to get their day started. And what we typically do is about 30 minutes of tips and things to apply that day in their business. Like, just to give you an example, this morning we talked about how to properly do a Zoom, right? Like, what should you look like when you're on these meetings? Are you looking down? Are you facing the camera? What should the lighting be like? What should your background be like? All those things, because we can't take it for granted that people would actually know that. if this is their first time doing virtual meetings. So really equipping people with what the tools and the knowledge that they need in today's time to be able to adjust to the different way of doing business. And yes, it's Zoom, it's video conferencing, it's things like this type of meeting where now, whether it's on a one-on-one basis, maybe it's a small group of people, like a small team, or maybe it's something as big as this where you're having hundreds and hundreds of people join in and listen in. There's a certain protocol, there's a certain way to do it, and there's certain learning about that. The other thing we're talking about, which is what you brought up before, which is mindset. How to make sure to have the proper mindset going about this, because people are now also in very close proximity to the people they live with, the people that they're basically around with all day. And these are not really the typical people that they usually would have spent more time with. It's interesting because these people are probably close family, spouses. But if you look at a typical day where someone, let's say, wakes up in the morning, you know, say they have a job, right? A 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 job. They get up in the morning, they get dressed, they go to work, they come home, they spend a couple hours with their family, and then they go to sleep and do the same thing the next day. Well, now when they're home, they're spending a lot more time with these people, and it could be a great thing, but it can also be a wake-up call to their mindset, right? And they also could be surrounded by people that maybe are thinking a certain way, and the influence is very much quicker to happen because of the proximity and because of the hours that they're talking to each other. I was actually speaking to someone today, and we were working on her business plan and her marketing plan, and we were talking about her marketing plan in terms of who she knows. And I asked her a question. I said, if I pulled out your phone right now, who would be the top 5 people that you would have just talked to? And is that typically the people you talk to? And she said, actually, I can show you who I just talked to, which are friends and family. She said, but before this pandemic, if you'd asked me the same question, it probably would have been colleagues and clients versus family and friends. And so it's having these different type of people around, that the people that I'm looking to train and develop as entrepreneurs, I want them to be the influencers versus the people that are influenced. And so equipping people with that right mindset and the things that maybe they should be talking about versus not talking about, or knowing how to cut certain conversations short and expand on others, I think that's a very important thing nowadays, and that's really what we're talking about. And so those 8 a.m. calls is one of the things we're doing outside of our typical trainings that we do, and mentoring sessions and advanced training, but it's constant communication, and it's a daily thing for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, let me ask you, so you're in the financial service industry, obviously, and so what was it that intrigued you enough that you, being a fashion designer, which is a different side of the brain, right, and all of a sudden you're able to transition from that into financial services? So what was it about financial services that intrigued you? What was it because I remember vividly you sitting literally in that booth at Denny's with me at midnight. And I know you guys, can you believe that I actually went to Denny's? But that was like, God, Fradel, how long ago was that? I mean, that was...
Yeah, that was probably about 16 years ago or so, 15, 16
wow.
years ago.
Is that right? Okay, yeah. So 15, 16 years ago is how long I've known Fradel now. And so what do you think what was it for you? I mean, I know, but I want the audience to know what it was for you. Because you also, a lot of people on this call today will say, well, I don't want to go into financial services because I don't know anybody. Or, they go to a different state and I don't know anybody. Yet you moved from Brooklyn to California and you didn't know anybody here in California, and you still built up a solid business in California without knowing a single person. And eventually you did, get connected with Dina Michael, right? But and it was Dina. It wasn't Michael. Was not her last name originally. That was not her maiden name. But yeah, Dina Schwartz, who then married one of our associates, Elon Michael, which is a tremendous business guy too. But what was it, Fradel, that intrigued you enough to make that switch? That your mind has been working so much on this side, and now you're over on this side. So share with everyone that. what was it? Are you there? Are you frozen? Hang on, guys. We're having a couple difficulties here with Fradel's phone or her video. I think we may have lost her. Let's see. All right, well, can you guys see me? I'm assuming so. Okay, well, we just lost Fradel, so here's what we're gonna do as we get her back on. Let me just tell you guys real quickly, you know, here, if we're in a recession or a depression, and what's the difference anyway? So, again, this is something you guys probably wanna grab some paper or I don't know, camera or whatever, and take a picture of some of this stuff here. So 2 things are for certain right now. One is the coronavirus is obviously bad for the economy, and things are bound to get worse before they get better. So some experts believe we're already in a recession, while others forecast an economic future more dire than anything we've seen since the Great Depression. So a lot of people are even still right now, even though I know that the governor in California today made an announcement. I'm not sure what other states have done, but they have talked about, you know, looking at, you know, kind of lightening up at the stay-in-home ordinance. And, you know, be able to go out, some restaurants being able to open up and not as many people inside a restaurant. And so some people are bracing like literally for the worst, like they're thinking this is worse than the Great Depression. Are we in a recession? So there's a lot of these unknowns. And that's, I think one of the things that everybody's really concerned about today is really the unknown, right? I mean, is there a vaccination? And even if it comes out, excuse me, is this vaccination going to be, you know, healthy for us? There's all these unknown things. Can there be a relapse of people who had the COVID-19 and, you know, they got better, but are those virus cells still inside their body? Of course, I'm not a doctor and I can't really, you know, address those issues. But in terms of a recession versus a depression, I can tell you that a recession is a period of at least 6 months when the GDP goes down instead of up, right? 6 months straight. So that's a recession. There's also a significant decline in economic activity spreads across the economy, lasting more than a few months, normally visible in real gross GDP, real income, employment, industrial production, and obviously retail sales. Now, if we look at our history going back to 1854, there has been 33 recessions since 1834. If I had a lot more time, I can actually show you the exact times of those recessions, how long the recession lasted, but you can kind of do a little of your own homework at home. But when the GDP obviously climbs back up to pre-recession levels, and the recession is now over. So, but we've had 33 of those. In terms of a depression, it's a major downswing in the business cycle, and they're characterized by reduced industrial production, widespread unemployment. I saw somebody today on Facebook that said, we are now officially in a depression. And it just got me floored, man, because, I mean, I couldn't even imagine someone saying that we're officially in a depression today. Because if we were to go back right now and look at the 1930s, are you guys working on getting Fradel back on? Okay, cool. The 1930s, the Great Depression, the unemployment rate was at 18.23%. We're nowhere near this 18% unemployment right now. I do know there are millions of people in this country that are unemployed, but we're not at the 18%. So for someone to actually post that today and everybody was commenting on it, I agree with you. That scares me that they actually think that we're in official depression, okay? Now, having said that, so here we go. This is what I was referring to, the 90 years of bull areas, and this is the Great Depression in the 1930s, where the unemployment rate was at 18.23%. So again, we're not near that right now. All right. Now, having said that, in terms of a depression, is a major downswing in the business cycle characterized by industrial production, reduced widespread unemployment, which we're not there yet, a serious decline or cessation of economic of growth in construction, and great reductions in international trade and capital movements. For more, far more uncommon and longer lasting, think of it as 2 or more recessions linked together with no economic recovery in between. So until the pandemic took place, I mean, our economy was doing extremely well. It's been doing amazing since the last time we had a recession in 2008, 9, and 10. So we haven't seen 2 back-to-back recessions right now. Now, there has been one depression since 1854, the Great Depression of 1929, where, again, I said that unemployment at that time reached 18%. Housing prices plummeted by 30%, and prices fell for goods by almost 10%. So the devastation of a Great Depression or a depression is so great that the effects of the Great Depression lasted for decades after it ended. Now, having said that, let's just talk about this. A recession cannot be defined until at least half a year has passed, and a depression can almost never be identified until after it's actually happened. So we are not, a lot of people say it's a recession or depression. We can't really say. It's a little premature to say if we're in a recession or a depression. Now, I understand that we've got a lot of people that are going on unemployment, but I just want you guys to know that right now, in my opinion, we're currently in an economic downturn, but that could change, right? So economic downturns are normal. We've had a lot of those, regular part of our healthy economy that ebbs and flows with periods of growth followed by periods of contraction. So what makes this downturn different is that it's caused by the coronavirus through the closures of non-essential businesses and high unemployment, not through a natural economic shift or cycle. So until it's considered safe enough to be able to open up businesses and factories and the economic conditions are expected to worsen, we can't really say, right, that we're in a recession or a depression, okay? So now how do you prepare for a recession? If we go into a recession, first and foremost, stay calm and keep a long-term perspective on your money or finance or business or whatever else it is that you're looking at, okay? Maintain a balanced and broadly diversified portfolio. Balance equity portfolios with a mix of dividend-paying companies and growth stocks. Choose funds with a strong history of weathering market declines. And yes, let's get her on. Use high-quality bonds to help offset equity volatility, okay? So that's that. Some key takeaways: recessions are a natural, necessary part of everyday business. Recessions have been infrequent. Recessions have been relatively short. Equities typically peak 7 months before the economic cycle, and a core bond portfolio can provide stability during recessions, okay? And other things that you may want to consider are some variable annuities. Again, here you'll see, I said, see a licensed securities rep. And also, there are other products called fixed index annuities that can also be a great strategy. And again, you need to talk to a licensed life and health associate agent. So these are some things that are very important and some key things that for you to know, but it's important for you to also get with the person who invited you onto this webinar and to talk to them and say, hey, listen, I want to know more about this kind of stuff, and I need to get more information on some of the things that John was talking about. So yeah, you may want to get a prospectus for a variable annuity. You may want to go and read the literature and brochures on these fixed index annuities. And again, as I go back, here, you know, again, it's all about diversification, right? All about diversifying. So those are some key takeaways of things that I wanted to share with you guys. So what I'd like to do now is bring Fradel back on. We had some video technical difficulties. So, Fradel,
Sorry
welcome
about
back
that.
to the webinar.
You know,
Yeah.
yes, some of the effects of the coronavirus. I'm just kidding. No, we're back. I don't know what happened, a little blank out there, but back. And what were we talking about before? You had asked me,
Okay.
started asking.
Yeah. So, do you remember the question? And I'm sure you were answering it, and we
Yes.
couldn't hear you.
Yes, we were talking about how did I go from being a fashion designer to a businesswoman in the financial industry with offices all over the place, including Wall Street. And, you know, it really was not anything I planned, but, you know, as they say, man plans and God laughs. And I believe my plan was a pretty big joke because I had planned to be in the fashion industry. And I was trying to find just a job to do while I was going to college. I was supporting myself out there in California, and I couldn't find anything in the design industry. So I literally said to myself, either I have to go back to New York and go back to living with my parents. Like John mentioned earlier, I'm the oldest of 12 kids, so I did not want to go back there to live in that house at that time. And so I said, I got to make it on my own. And so I committed to myself to really be open to anything, regardless of industry, as long as it could make me money. And so that's how I landed in the Encino office, just looking for a job, really, not a business. And what intrigued me enough to actually turn that entire idea around was once I really started understanding actually what we do and how impactful it could be, not only to the consumer, to the person that we're sitting with, but as a result of helping those people, how it could change my own personal finances. And what I started to realize as I looked at people in the design world, in the fashion industry, and then comparing that to people that I were seeing that were successful in the financial industry as entrepreneurs, controlling their own time, determining their own destiny, calling the shots, being their own boss. And I compared the two lifestyles. A lot of times people go into a career or a job thinking that they want to do something because of their skill, because of maybe something they enjoy to do, or even something they're passionate about, but they sometimes fail to look at, does it match with the lifestyle that they dream of? And I was very fortunate to get a preview of that, of even seeing people like yourself, John, and the lifestyle you were living and others who had that as well. And I said, wait a minute, if I can have that so soon in this industry, and I'm having an impact on other people, and I get to learn how to handle my own finances and put myself on track financially, I can just keep the design as a hobby, as something I do that I enjoy, and make this as my primary business where it's going to give me that financial freedom, that financial independence, and give me the lifestyle that I was looking for. And that's really what it did. And as I started down that path and that journey, it delivered everything I imagined and more, not just from an income perspective, but also having the freedom of time. And when I started out, I was young, single, so it gave me the ability to travel, it gave me the ability to have the nice material things that I wanted, and you know, to be able to really have the lifestyle of the rich and famous. But as I started getting into responsible adulthood and having children and getting to experience a different part of life, I mean, that value just went through the roof, because being able to have the time with my kids. When I had I have 3 children. I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And when I had my first son, Gabriel, I didn't have to be bound to a certain number of weeks to go back to work. I literally told everyone, this is the day that I'm leaving. I don't know when I'll be back. I actually missed it so much. I went back sooner than I thought, but that was my own choosing. No one told me that I have to do that. And during that time, my income skyrocketed, right? I actually had earned more after I gave birth than even before that. So it's really the type of thing where, you know, and I encourage anyone out there who might not have that lifestyle, and even if you're doing something you're passionate about, really take a look and see, is it going to match the lifestyle that you want? Is there any possibility that with what you're doing, you have a plan to get to the lifestyle that you're looking for? And if not, maybe adjust the plan. Don't necessarily adjust the goal. If the goal is to have a certain amount of money or a certain lifestyle, a certain time with your kids, a certain working environment, don't adjust the goal. Just adjust what you're doing to get there and allow opportunities to be able to come in. You know, I read something that talked about being an entrepreneur and different types of entry into entrepreneurship. And one of them is the opportunity entrepreneur, right? Is someone who basically is looking for opportunity. And usually you'll find those type of people in good markets, right? When things are going great, they're always looking for new things. But then there's the necessity entrepreneur. And that's someone who maybe they can't get a job, or maybe they just are out of work, like a lot of people are now, and they come into entrepreneurship out of necessity. And I want to tell you that the time right now is for both of those types of entrepreneurs, because some people just need it out of necessity, but there's also a lot of opportunity right now for entrepreneurs. And I was fortunate to see that about 16 years ago, but I see it so much more today. And that's why I'm so fired up, more than even ever before.
Now, let me ask you, you did not get the best support, I guess. I don't want to say that. I mean, you know, don't take this the wrong way, because I think the world of your family, but, you know, one of the things is that your family was not very supportive in the beginning. Of course, they're supportive now, right? But how did you deal with that? Dealing with your parents or other family members who are unsupportive? Because there's so many people who don't have the support of their family and friends when they're trying to start a business, and you know, now it's kind of crazy because you know, there's a lot of people who have a job, obviously, and these people are losing their jobs, because I always say that the person who controls your paycheck controls you. And so, look, like all these people that are getting unemployed and they have no money, they got no income, they're dependent on somebody else to bring money and put food on the table. Whereas for me, I got nobody to blame, right? The only person is me and you, right, for yourself. And that what we do every day puts food on the table for us. So, right. But how did you deal with that? You know, from a mindset standpoint, to know how do you deal with that, and how would you encourage other people, or what tips would you give other people to deal with those types of adversities when starting a business?
Yeah, so that definitely is a major point, and I think sometimes it actually takes people out of business because they can't handle it. And I think the first thing is assessing whether when you go back to that environment, right? Because there's a lot of times where you can get out of it, right? When maybe you're going to the office, maybe you're meeting with a client, maybe you're meeting with a mentor. But at the moment when you go back, right? When you go back to, in my case, it was speaking to my parents, it was speaking to my friends who not only weren't supportive, didn't believe in me, didn't think I can do it, weren't understanding of why I would want to do it, right? You know, I had always talked about fashion design, and suddenly I'm talking to them about how to plan for their own financial future. And here's someone who's $30,000 in credit card debt, the one telling them. So I don't blame them necessarily for not believing it, but what I had to do, and this was personal for me, and some people may have to do that as well, and some people might have to take another route. But for me, I realized that until I had the mental fortitude to be able to handle that rejection on a daily basis, I had to block it off. And so what I did is I had very loving and very candid conversations with a lot of my friends and my family as well. And I let them know, I said, look, I'm starting a business. And I also painted a very clear picture to them about what I'm setting out to do and by when. And it was something that I was able to do because I was clear on that. So step one is you got to get clear on where it is that you're going. And I outlined that picture to them. And this is exactly what I told them. I said, I'm starting a business and I'm working on developing 50 licensed financial professionals in the next year. I'll be opening up my own office. and I'll be generating a six-figure income. And because I'm setting out to do that, for the next 6 to 9 months, I cannot talk to you about anything other than, you know, just checking up on you to make sure you're okay. And if you wanted to ever talk to me about my business, those are really the only two things that we can talk about for the next 6 to 9 months. And I was hardcore about that. So obviously I told them that, and of course, because they didn't believe me, they didn't believe that either. So they continued to call, right? It was the calls from the friends. Hey, where are you? Oh, I'm at the office. And this is 11 o'clock p.m. Why are you still at the office? And I said, look, remember what I told you. I'm building a business. I'm opening my own office. I'm building 50 licensed financial professionals, and I'll make a six-figure income. Is anybody dying? Is anybody hurt? No? Okay, great. See ya. Right? And it was after a while of doing that, they kind of got the hint, and it became, that allowed me to do was not only business, but it was also to protect my mental fortitude, my mental capacity of handling that objection until I got stronger. And what ended up happening was in that first year, I did exactly what I told them I would do, right? I opened an office. I licensed 50 financial professionals. I made a six-figure income. And so then after the fact, it was easy to go back to them and say, hey, we can talk now, right? Remember, I told you this was what I was going to do. Well, I did it. How's your life going, right? And even those that still had a negative mentality, it was okay because now I can handle it, right? Now I was in a different mindset. I was stronger. But when you're first starting out, it's hard enough as it is to get that startup process. You don't need additional negativity coming in. So whenever possible, I would recommend that one, first of all, you get a very clear plan of what you're doing, because if people sense you're wishy-washy and you're just testing something out and you're not even sure yourself, they're not going to respect you for that. But if you're very clear on where it is that you're going, what it is that you're doing, and then sometimes you got to be real with people and put up some walls. Obviously, if it's your spouse or your child that is in that way, there might have to be different adjustments there. But other than that, when it comes to friends or external family, you got to put up those walls and just say, look, this is for a limited time until I accomplish this. And then, you know, and then we can spend more time together. And for me, that was very effective.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, even when you started your business, you weren't like, your business was not like, it was like a vertical curve where it's going up, right, all the time. I mean, your business went up, it went down, it went up, went down. And, you know, it's always easy for people to talk in a positive way or rave about their business when you're at the peak, you know, of a curve. But, you know, when you're at the lowest point, where a lot of business owners are today at that bottom point right now, at the bottom of that trough, you know, they kind of go, man, should I have been in my own business? Should I have started my own? I mean, should I have got a solid job? What do you tell yourself, or what do you do? Do you have self-talks to say, no, I still made the best decision? Or what do you do on a daily basis, or whenever you're at your lowest point? You know, one of the things that my mentor said to me was, he said, John, never make a decision, you know, about something major at the lowest point of your careers or your life, right? So when you're at that emotional, you know, downside, don't make a big decision, obviously, right? But for you, what did you do to keep yourself in the game, right? Even like right now, I mean, you're in the epicenter of this virus, you know, you're confined to your home. I mean, you know, you got all this stuff. What keeps Fradel Barber ticking and moving forward in the right direction every single day?
Yeah, that's a great point, because, you know, I mean, life is highs and lows, and certainly for the life of an entrepreneur, for sure. I mean, one of the things that keeps me really on point is reconnecting to why was I doing it to begin with, you know? And I mean, you mentioned about New York, and it's interesting because, I mean, New York's right now is not what it is. I mean, if you go out, when you think about New York, you think about noise, you think about hustle and bustle, you think about people running around. And I mean, right now it's a ghost town. You go outside, in middle of the day, it feels like 3 a.m. or actually even 3 a.m. typically would have more people outside than during the day. And for me, that's a very weird thing. I mean, I've lived in New York pretty much my whole life, except when I lived in California for about 5 years, starting the business. But the only time I really remember that was during September 11th, when it got like that for about probably less than a week, where it was a ghost town, nobody was around. So I've had a few thoughts of like, wow, do I want to live in New York, right? Because when streets are empty in New York, you see the ugly a lot more, right? You see more homeless, you see more rats, you see more garbage. Those things were there the entire time, but they're masked with people and just the vibrance of the city. And so then I think about it and I just always go back to why, like, what do I actually love about this place? And so I think that could be compared to your business as well. When you're going through those tough times like now, you want to think about why did you start to begin with, right? What made you go into it? What's your why? What is it that you were after? And understanding that even though this might be a low point, do you still want the same things? And chances are the answer is yes, because most people become entrepreneurs for free, right? Most people become entrepreneurs because they don't want a boss. They want to have unlimited income. They want to scale it to the size of their vision. And so that hasn't changed. So just because you're going through a tough time, reconnecting with why you're doing it, for me is very helpful. It's also helpful to be able to focus on the future. And the future is, where are we going from here? And quite frankly, when you're in the bottom, there's really only one way, which is back up. And so, yes,
right.
It might take time, but hey, you're at the bottom, so there's not much lower that you can go. And so when I think about where when you have a downturn, like you were talking about, even in the market, it's almost like there's a guaranteed upside, right? There's a guaranteed upside that at some point it's going to go back up. The question is, we don't know when, and that's the big factor. And so the factor of that, even in business, is can you hold on? Right? Can you stay long that you will be present for the upturn? You will be around when the market goes back up. You will be around when your business goes back up. And I've seen a lot of people quit. I've seen people right now that left the market right now. And you know what? They might, protect themselves from certain shortfalls, but in the long run, they will not be there to participate, right? They won't be there to participate when their money's under their mattress, as opposed to in instruments that can be potentially give them that upside potential, right? And the same thing is in business. You go out there and you leave the entrepreneur world, you've the possibility for upside in your business. And so the question is, can you hold on? And I think that a combination of what we just talked about, and also being around positive people, protecting your mindset from the negativity of the media and all that, those are all things that help. And at the end of the day, it does take some mental toughness to be able to get through it, but you wouldn't have become an entrepreneur if you didn't have that.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me ask you, Fradel, do you think right now for people sitting at home, this is a great time or an opportunity to start a business now as they're sitting at home, those are confined? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. This brings me back to 08 and 09. That's actually when I moved my business to New York. And I didn't really fully grasp it at the time, but I do now. When I got to New York, my only comparison to business, because I started very young, was my experience in California. So even though I had business experience, it was only in the California area. And as we know, New York is a separate country to do business in. So I was really, essentially starting all over in every capacity. But I was a little clueless in that fact. Like, I didn't go in knowing that everything was going to be different. I thought, hey, I learned a business. I'm pretty good at it. I can just go and repeat. Well, it had some of that, but it was also a lot of differences. And one of the differences was real estate, right? I mean, New York markets are very different than California markets. So when I got in and started looking, my first step was, hey, let me look around for an office. And so I started looking around for an office, and I got shocked by the price tags, let alone the fact that there's no parking lots, right? People don't park their cars at the office, whereas in California, they did that. But one of the things that happened at that time was the downturn of the market at the end of 08 and early 09. And so what I was able to do is I was able to get in on that downside of the market. And so I was a startup essentially in business in a down market. Let me tell you, that is the best place to be. Why? Everything is cheaper, right? Most businesses are not flourishing. You're starting up and you have the opportunity to take on what most people were leaving. My first lease ended up being a sublease from Bank of New York Mellon because all the banks cleared out. And so there was a ton of empty space, and I was coming to expand. I was coming to start something, not to end something. So we're going to have an opportunity right now where there's going to, unfortunately, be a lot of ends of businesses, a lot of ends of things. And so if you're in a position to start, you got to be ready, right? Because that point is coming right now. And so again, if you hold on, if you're ready to be on an expansion phase, if you're ready to start something, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for takeover from people who just ended. And so I think that for any entrepreneur that stands, specifically in our industry, we already have a shortfall of people in the financial advisor community that is staying in the business, right? You look at the statistics, less and less people are, and especially of younger ages, right? The average financial advisor is upwards of the age of 55. And, you know, if you look at their timeline, 20, 30 years down the line, they're retiring, right? Or maybe even less. Well, you have this entire market that needs the services of this industry, but the supply is declining. And so we're already, you know, that has nothing to do with the pandemic. That was already there. But add this on top of it, where there's going to be a lot of financial companies that can't keep up with doing business virtually. They're not set up for electronic applications. They're not set up where they can have a business where, I mean, quite frankly, they don't have to leave their home. And so we are, right? And so businesses that are set up that way will be positioned that once again to take what people are ending and use that as a startup. So I think that there's going to be a ton of opportunity for people that can see that vision, for people that can take advantage of it, that can not get swept away by all the negativity. And it's going to be also people that are ready to work, because this is not just something that's going to be handed to people, right? People think like, oh, there's a lot of opportunity. Well, you got to work your ass off for it, right? It's not just something that's going to be handed to you. You actually really got to work for it. But if you're that person that's ready for that, that's ready to put the work in, that's ready to take advantage of the opportunity, there is going to be so much of it that it should get you really excited.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. Well, Fradel, thank you so much for joining us tonight on our webinar. I hope everyone that was on this call got tremendous value. I know everybody's going to give her a big round of applause right now, right?
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially being somewhat late for you, or for most people out in New York. Appreciate you jumping on, especially with 3 little ones in the background. Those of you that are out in New York or know people in New York, please reach out to Fradel. Fradel, do you want to give out your Instagram, your handle on there, or your DM on your Facebook?
Yes, I am at Fradel Barber on all social media platforms. So wherever you are, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, at Fradel Barber. And if you see my name on the screen there, that's exactly how I spell it. So you can just reach out to me and let's connect, and look forward to seeing you on there.
You're awesome. Be safe out there, Fradel. Okay. You bet. Appreciate you. All right, you guys, that was Fradel Barber from the East Coast who just joined us right now, and I just want to finish up my PowerPoint here. Some people had called and texted, emailed, and said, hey, they loved our last email or our last webinars and talking about some of the key differences between, the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP, and the EIDL. Some of you that are entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, business owners, thank you for joining us tonight. And for those of you that are, independent contractors, let me just give you a better side-by-side comparison so you understand which one is which. Because some people said, hey, is that $10,000 grant part of EIDL? Is it PPP? Which one is it? I have to have no collateral, so I'm going to give you guys some clarification on that right now. So here you go. So, this is your loan amount. So, with the loan amount for these SBA programs, the EIDL will go up to $2 million based on actual economic injuries. And over here, the PPP is 2.5 months of payroll costs with a maximum of $10 million. So that's just your loan amount. When it comes to the loan term, okay, here's how it looks. Oops, excuse me, sorry. Your EIDL is 30-year payment plan, and for the PPP indicates that most loans have to be paid back. There is a chance to go up to 10 years, but it's for most people it's probably going to be 2 years. It'll be a short-term loan. So that kind of gives you some clarification there. And then over here for eligible borrowers, okay, so this one says all SBA qualified small businesses, NICS sector, 72 sector businesses, the 501 market, that's the nonprofit organizations. You got self-employed individuals, and of course you got all these small businesses that were in existence since 2/12/2020. Now compare that over here with the EIDL. Whoops, excuse me, my PowerPoint's going faster. All right, here we go. Again, you got independent contractors here. Here it's tribal businesses, sole proprietors, and the independent contractors. Again, all these different people qualify under the EIDL program. I'm just going to move my little mouse so you guys can take pictures of it if you'd like, or you can even see my mouse. I'm not sure. Okay. Next over here is your application process. Some people said, oh yeah, I tried calling the SBA and they didn't know anything about the PPP. Well, they knew about it, but they just didn't process it. So the PPP program, you got to go to an SBA approved bank to get those. And then all these loan fees are waived, and most banks are starting to accept application now for 4/3 of the week through 4/6. So right now, very, very important for you to start the PPP. And the EIDL is issued by the SBA, approved solely on your credit score and your financial need. So, there are some differences right there for you guys to understand. That's a side-by-side comparison. And then, again, there is a loan fee requirement to show need, and 1 year of operations are waived, okay? In terms of collateral, there's no collateral for the PPP program, but collateral is required for loans more than $25,000. So even if like $25,000 would be helpful for you, you may you do not have to provide collateral for the EIDL. Next is your personal guarantee. There's no personal guarantee for the PPP. And then, of course, loans that are over $200,000, there is some sort of collateral that's going to be required if it's by owners of greater than 20%. Interest over here, again, this one is 4% for the PPP. And over here, you got 3.75% for businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits. Okay, I'll go let you take a picture of that. And then forgiveness, the SBA will provide 8 weeks of loan forgiveness for funds applied to pay for payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, utility expenses, all incurred after receiving funding. So that takes care of the loan forgiveness and the grant, if you will. And then over here for the EIDL, there's no forgiveness for this particular program, okay? Now, how to get forgiveness? Number one, you must apply through your lender for forgiveness on your loan. The application must include documentation and all these little things right here. Take a picture of that. And then on the EIDL side, there's, let me go back. It doesn't even apply because it's not a part of the program, okay? So there's that. Now, in terms of deferred payment, you can defer up to 6 months over here, and then over here you can defer up to 1 year for the EIDL, okay? So again, I think this is a little more crystal clear for you guys, if you could see them side by side compared to what I did for you the last couple of weeks, and then the uses of where you can, where you can use this money and for what purpose. So when you actually apply, you actually can tell them what the reason for why you need this loan or a grant or whatever it is. So be very specific as to these types of things right here. Tax filing will depend on your lender, and then for the EIDL 2019 taxes do not even have to be filed prior to applying for this loan, okay? And so, but they are going to ask for something called a 4506, which basically means that they get access to your tax return so they know you're not lying and there's no, funny business going on there. Availability, as I said, this one, PPP till June 30th. And for this one, grants will be available all the way up until the end of the year. So you've got a lot more time for a lot of this stuff right here. And so I hope that helps you out doing the side-by-side comparison. I also have enough of that. I got some blockbuster announcements right now that I'd like to share with you. For those of you that are in business with me right now, or, one of our satellite offices or one of our satellite teams, it is hot off the press right now. Very, very exciting. I'm going to tell you this. These are some new SMD guideline promotions. So I want you guys to understand this because it's very important. It's almost like a blue light special, just so you guys know. So they've reduced the guidelines and some of the requirements for your SMD promotion. And if I was you, I would jump on this in a heartbeat right now for you guys. So basically, these are temporary, and these guys are in effect for runs if you're, wanting to become an SMD from March through June. And there is a 4-month run or a 3-month run. Now, let's say you were to go with the 3-month run. So let's say you want to become an SMD in the months of, April, May, June. You only got to do 20,000 points and only have 7 licensed agents, okay? Now, in terms of getting people licensed, the testing centers are now open. Not all of them, but some of them are open. You can start calling and getting your license. We actually had someone today that actually passed their license, and well, we've had several people, but one of the people who contacted me and texted me earlier was Nadia, and she said that she had passed her life license. So congratulations to Nadia Villarreal, who passed her test today at a testing center. So congratulations to you. And so if I was you guys, excuse me here, my PowerPoint's getting all kind of messed up. I would run for these promotions right now, blockbuster, hot off the press. And get your points going, 60,000 points, that's basically 20,000 points a month, okay? And so a quick note from Transamerica, one of the big insurance companies that are out there. They've got some new guidelines for underwriting where basically due to the coronavirus, they're offering different products with no medicals, basically no blood tests, no urine samples or any of that kind of stuff. These are some guidelines right here that they're running. You can see the different columns of the different age brackets, and you can see that there's really no requirements, almost up to $1 million. So if you add long-term care to that, then you've got another $20,000 a month that you can get for long-term care, disability, all these other wonderful things that come with this particular policy. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, please get with the person who invited you onto this webinar and say, hey, listen, I want to know more about that kind of stuff. I need more information because that was kind of interesting. And it really is. I mean, this is something I think that everyone really needs. But again, I want you to get with the person who invited you here tonight with this call and ask them about more details for this. In terms of another note from Transamerica, these policies that were issued in the past are now going to get sent directly to your client, so you don't have to worry about coming to the office and picking up your policies. So these are going to be available for you. So just go ahead and, just know that these start dates will be effective pretty quickly. Starting April 8th for annuities, April 10th, and life policies are April 10th, and all these other IUL stuff is April 17th, okay? And other than that, I've got some other fun stuff that I want to tell you guys that Cash Rastan and I are going to be holding an awesome thing this coming Friday, April 17th. Friday night, I thought it would be a lot of fun for all of you guys to join us. Please take a picture of this right here. You can register on this website down below with this link at the very bottom. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you the Think and Grow Rich movie. So this is a great time for you to get your children, your teenagers, sit them down and say, hey, I think it's important for you to watch this movie, get some popcorn out, some hot dogs, some bonbons, or whatever else. We actually learned how to make ice cream in our house over the last couple of days because, we didn't want to go to the store and buy ice cream, and get a virus just to pick up some goods. So this is pretty cool that you can actually tune in right here and watch this and learn how to, maybe go figure out how to make some ice cream on your own. So again, join us for a movie screening of Think and Grow Rich. 7:30 p.m. will be the start time. There will be no previews. We're going to go straight into the movie, so maybe like around 7 o'clock, get everybody ready and start watching this movie with us this coming Friday. We'll be sending you guys an additional email reminding you about the movie night this coming week. Almost every day we'll send you a reminder. And then we have this thing on Saturday that we're calling Shin-tastic Saturday. So this coming Saturday, the day after the movie night, tune in on Saturday morning with Sharon Lecter, who is the author of the book called Outwitting the Devil. She was the co-author of all the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books, and also the CEO of Rich Dad, Poor Dad Corporation for 10 years. And so she will be on this thing with us at 1 o'clock Pacific time this coming Saturday. So we changed the time from 11 to 1, so you can sleep in now for those of you that are not morning people. 1 o'clock Pacific time Saturday, you'll have a chance to, both Cash and I will be interviewing Sharon Lecter. And then finally, next Tuesday, we're going to continue this, Who Mentors the Mentors? And I have been so honored to have so many people impact my life. But this man right here, Mr. Monty Holm, will be joining us on this Think and Grow Rich webinar. And he'll be talking to you about a lot of different things and how he has built literally an empire. So hear from another man who mentored me, has been very instrumental in helping my wife and I being who we are today. Tune in next Tuesday, get this information out to everyone, 7:30 next Tuesday. And again, for those of you that have not subscribe to me, please go to YouTube and see all my other videos. You can subscribe to all my YouTube videos and also follow me on Instagram and Facebook as we continue to provide you more content every single day. This is the movie we're going to be featuring this coming Friday, and if you have not read my book, please read my book during these times because I think it'll be very, very helpful for you to understand how to change and frame the way you think, right? I want you to think about what you think about and read this book here called How Rich Asians Think, and this is also available by audio on Amazon.com. So, hey, listen, thank you guys all for joining us tonight. Continue to self-quarantine. Be safe. We love you. We think about you every single day. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to my office or myself. God bless every single one of you guys. Take care. We'll see you this coming Friday at the movie night. Take care, everyone. Be blessed.